Hi, I'm Ms. Hall, and this is Lesson 74, Graphing Basic Sine and Cosine Functions. We're going to begin by looking at y equals sine of x. We're going to graph it, identify the amplitude, and identify the period. You'll notice in my table that everything is in radians. So when you see our graph below, the x-axis is in radians as well. When I'm going to draw my little diagram for myself, I'll use radians. So this is 0 radians, pi radians. This is pi over 2. And this is 3 pi over 2. And I'll draw my little unit circle and remind myself that it is cosine of theta, comma, sine of theta. So when I'm drawing y equals, I'm evaluating y equals sine of x, I am looking for the y value. Sine is the y value. And so let's begin at 0. Okay, when x is 0, we begin at 0. Here is 0. This point is 1, comma 0. So the sine at this point is 0. Pi over 2. This point is 0, comma 1. So the sine is 1. Pi is negative 1, comma 0. The sine of pi is 0. I'm running out of colors. So let's recycle. Let's do black. 3 pi over 2. This point is 0, negative 1. So negative 1. And then 2 pi is the same as 0. And so it's 0. Okay, and now I've got to go in the clockwise direction. So negative pi over 2 is really 3 pi over 2. And that is negative 1. And then negative pi is really pi. So we have 0. Negative 3 pi over 2 is really pi over 2. The y value is 1, and negative 2 pi is the same as 0, or 2 pi, which is 0. Okay. So you should be able to fill in this chart like I did by hand without using a calculator. Now we'll plot these points. Negative 2, 0, we go to 1, 0, negative 1, 0, 1, 0, negative 1, 0. Oh, we didn't do 5 pi over 2, but 5 pi over 2 is the same as pi over 2. And you'll see this is the graph of y equals sine of x. So some characteristics to notice is that the domain of each function, at the bottom, the core concept, it includes cosine of x. We'll just talk about sine of x. So the domain of sine of x is all real numbers and go on in each direction, infinite. The range of each function is negative 1 to 1. The y values, the lowest are negative 1. The maximum is positive 1. Here, let's get to this vocabulary. Amplitude. Okay, the amplitude of each graph is one half of the difference of the maximum value and the minimum value. So we have the maximum value is 1. That's the y value. The minimum y value is negative 1. And so the amplitude, to calculate it, I take 1/2 the maximum minus the minimum. So that is 1/2 of 2, which is just 1. So I can note over here that y equals sine of x has an amplitude of 1. Amplitude equals 1. Okay. Next bullet point, each function is periodic, which means that its graph has a repeating pattern. The shortest repeating portion of the graph is called a cycle. The horizontal length of each cycle is called the period. Okay. So the period is one cycle of the repeated pattern. I'm going to choose to start right here at 0, 0. You'll see the pattern is to go up to 1, down to -1, and back to 0, and then repeat. Okay, so this is one cycle or a period. And the period here is 2 pi. Is the period. And then the final bullet point is that the x-intercepts for y equals sine of x occur when x is 0, plus or minus pi, plus or minus 2 pi, plus or minus 3 pi, on and on forever. Okay, so this is what I want you to be comfortable with, these 3 steps. I want you to be able to fill in a table when x is given in radians. 2, I want you to be able to, after you've graphed it, to identify the amplitude. And right, that's half the distance between it's half the difference of the maximum to minimum value. And then identify the period of the graph. That is the horizontal distance a cycle takes.